What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03 and starting to get cautiously optimistic about this Pistons team. Not to be dramatic, but I truly think the next 2 weeks of basketball is going to more or less make or break the Pistons season. And in this video, I'm going to explain why I believe that and also what the Pistons can do within that stretch to make sure that they make it worthwhile. So, I'm going to give you all a quick overview of our schedule from now up until Christmas. Our next game tonight is against the 2-10 Raptors, who will be without Scotty Barnes, Bruce Brown, and Emmanuel Quickley. And then the game after that Sunday, we'll be playing against the Washington Wizards, who are 2-8, obviously one of the teams that are tanking more or less for this season. After that, we'll be playing the Bulls, who are 5-7, and then the Hornets, who are 4-7. After that, we'll have the Orlando Magic, who are 7-6, but will be without Paolo Banchero still at this point in time. And then we get to play the 2-10 Raptors again. So we actually have about the lightest stretch of a schedule you could possibly ask for between now and pretty much the end of November. The Pistons are currently 5-8. If you guys have been paying attention and watching the games or keeping up with my YouTube channel, you would know that we have been a few possessions away from being 8-5 rather than 5-8. So we really have to get some of those wins back during this stretch, because after this 6-game stretch, of all teams that are either below 500, excluding the Magic, it's going to get a little nasty, because after this 6-game stretch, we'll be going up against the Grizzlies, the Pacers, the Sixers and Bucks, who are off to slow starts, but you guys know the story there. And then we get the Celtics, the Knicks, finally an easier game against the Jazz. But then we go on a West Coast trip to end out the calendar year. We've got Phoenix on the road, Lakers on the road, Kings on the road, Nuggets on the road. So between now and then, if we don't take care of these 6 games that we have upcoming that are going to be on the easier side, it's going to be really, really tough to pull out wins. I know that it's the NBA. On any given night, any team can beat anybody. But so far this year, the Pistons have actually done a really good job of beating teams that they should beat. They beat the Nets. They beat the Miami Heat when they were missing Jimmy Butler. They've done a good job of beating the teams that they should beat. And I think that it is super important for us to be able to win, say, 4 or 5 of these next 6 games to get us back over 500, sitting pretty in the standings before we have to take on what is pretty rough of a schedule to close out the calendar year. So I want to go through and talk about 3 things that I think will be super important to make sure that the Pistons can win 4 or 5 of these next 6 games. And the first thing is going to be injuries. The last game, we were without Jaden Ivey, Simone Fontecchio, Tim Hardaway Jr., Asar Thompson, and Bobby Klitman have still yet to play. And we're going to need some of these guys back. I thought that Marcus Sasser did a really good job of playing some spot minutes. Wendell Moore was kind of iffy on, but we need the depth, and we need as many of these guys back as soon as possible. For tonight's game, currently, Jaden Ivey is questionable, and he did go through warm-up, so I'm pretty optimistic about him either returning for tonight's game or at least for Sunday. Simone Fontecchio and Tim Hardaway Jr. were both listed as doubtful, which is not great for tonight's game, but that does tell me that they are on a good timeline to return. And of course, Asar Thompson is now cleared to play, but needs to ramp up to play 5-on-5. So I'm actually pretty optimistic about all of these injuries, but we definitely need some of these guys to get back in the lineup as soon as possible, because with this late schedule coming up, we need all hands on deck just to make sure that we can cash out on all of these games that we possibly can. So the second most important thing is just going to be taking care of the ball. The Pistons are towards the bottom of the league in turnovers. It feels like beating a dead horse at this point, but the Pistons just need to do a better job of taking care of the ball. The easy scapegoat is to blame Cade and his high turnovers, which you definitely can. But if you do solely that, I think it's worthwhile mentioning that there's a lot of other players on this team who have done a lot of costly turnovers at big moments in games down the stretch and not really turning over the ball at as low of a clip as you would hope, considering how much they actually have the ball. I'm thinking of guys like Jalen Duren, who is leading the league in turnover percent which rates the amount of time that they actually have with the ball versus how often they turn it over. So yes, Cade needs to cut down on the turnovers, but everybody does. We are currently at the bottom of the league as far as turnovers go, and turnovers are one of the main things that can make you lose games that you should win, and I do feel like we should win a lot of these games in the next 6-game stretch. But if they turn over the ball, that's just going to leave the door open for a lot of these teams that are not as good on paper as we are currently, for some of them due to injuries or some just in general. And we just need to take care better of the ball. That's just stating the obvious, but it's important because it's glaring. And the last thing that I think will dictate these next 6 games is going to be our ability to execute down the stretch. It's no secret that the Pistons have had a disproportionate amount of close games, particularly the last 5 or 6 have all really came down to the last couple possessions. And the Pistons just need to do a good job of executing, because if they leave too many wins on the table as they have over the course of the last couple weeks, it will be costly, especially if we're leaving wins on the table in close games against these teams like the Raptors that are 2-10. Or the Wizards, who are 2-8. It's a little bit easier to write off a game where you play the Bucks and almost beat them and take them into overtime and kind of piss away the game, because they're the Milwaukee Bucks, and despite their record, that's still a team that's very, very difficult to play against and have one of the best players in the league on the floor, giving us 60. But we just can't fail in late game execution situations when we're playing against Grady Dick-led Raptors. I know that it's been tough to watch at times. The free throws from Tobias against the Rockets were brutal. The free throws against the Bucks with Ron Holland were brutal. The Brandon Miller putback, those have all been really difficult watches. I mean, disappointing at the very least towards the ends of those games. And we just can't have those situations happening anymore, period. But definitely against this lighter schedule, because we need the wins, flat out. We're 5-8. The East is looking very, very light as far as the standings perspective go. I think ultimately I'm with everybody, or the consensus of the fan base is that the goal should be 30 wins at least and a play-in spot. So if they want to do that, they just need to execute down the stretch, not turn over the ball, get these guys back to full health, and hopefully get over 500 before they have to take on what is a very difficult schedule in December. So let me know what you guys think. It's going to be really interesting to watch. I don't think I can handle us getting beat by teams like the Raptors or Wizards anymore. It's been crazy the past couple weeks, but would love to see a couple blowouts. Hopefully can get a 20-point win, sneak one of those in, a nice blowout against one of these teams that only have 2 wins or so. And I think we'd be trending in the right direction. And I'll catch up with you guys soon.